Hi everybody. Today we're going to start talking about evolution in terms of genetics. Remember that Darwin had no knowledge of genetics? So everything that we're going to be talking about is kind of outside of Darwin's theories. But in terms of genetics, we can define evolution as a change in allele frequency of a population over time, right? In order for that definition to make sense, there's a couple terms that we have to get out of the way. First, we have gene pool, right? A gene pool is the combined genetic information of all members of a population, right? The relative frequency is how common or how popular a specific allele is within that gene pool. So here we have a population of mice, right? Now, it might seem that the black allele is more common, right? Because we have more black mice than we have brown mice, right? However, the number of homozygous brown mice is greater than the number of homozygous black mice, which means that the brown allele is actually the more common allele. Now, any change in the frequency of brown and black alleles within this mouse population would mean that the mouse population is evolving. Now, natural selection affects single gene traits and polygenic traits a little bit differently. But remember that with a single gene trait, right, it's one gene that has two alleles. One allele is dominant and the other is recessive. And it leads to two different phenotypes. For example, if we're talking about pea plants, you could either be tall or short. Right? There's really nothing in between. But with polygenic traits, traits that are controlled by multiple genes, we have a wide range of genotypes and phenotypes. So human height's a perfect example. We don't just have tall people and short people, right? But we have relatively few short people, relatively few tall people, and most people are average height, giving us this bell-shaped curve that we see right here. So, everything I'm about to talk about only affects polygenic traits. So, the first way that polygenic traits can be affected by natural selection is something called directional selection. Right? This is when individuals at one end of the curve have higher fitness than those in the middle or the opposite end. Right? So, here we have bird beak size. Right? And what we see is that the original population is shown here with the dotted line, right? And the entire graph just kind of shifts over to the right, which means that it favors birds with larger beaks. Those that had weaker and smaller beaks seem to die off. They're less fit and less able to survive and reproduce. So this entire bell-shaped curve just kind of shifts over to the right, and the average bird beak size gets larger. The second type of selection is stabilizing selection. And here, again, the dotted line shows the original population. However, it's the average individuals that have the highest fitness, the best chance of surviving and reproduce. This particular graph looks at birth mass, right? Those that are extremely light at birth have low birth mass, and those that are extremely heavy at birth don't seem to survive. But it's the average birth mass that has the best chance of surviving and reproducing. Right? So the 2-pound babies don't make it, the 10-pound babies don't make it, but the 7-8-pound babies have the best chance of surviving and reproducing. Finally, we have disruptive selection. And disruptive selection, as the graph shows, you don't want to be average, right? It's the extreme ends of the curve that have the higher fitness and the greater chance of surviving and reproducing, right? So we're back to bird beak size, and we see that birds with smaller beaks have a greater chance of surviving and reproducing, and birds that have larger beaks have a good chance of surviving and reproducing. However, the birds that are average and have a medium-sized beak probably don't have a food source, right, that is really tailored fit to their beak, and therefore they don't have a good chance of surviving and reproducing. Eventually, this disruptive selection can split this bird population in two in the process called speciation or adaptive radiation. All right, so we'll see that the smaller beak birds and the larger beak birds, all right, will split into two separate species. All right, guys, that's it for today's lesson. Thank you.